Hi viewers, welcome you once again to Micro Learning. This is Shailaja with class 12 economics. We are now in the third chapter. Okay, and we have almost completed the different types of unemployment. We have seen about the classical theory of employment. We have seen the Keynesian theory of employment. And Keynes is supposed to be a modern economist. And J.B. Say belongs to the classical economy group. And we have seen about effective demand at yesterday. Now we are going to see about 3.6.1, that is aggregate demand function. Okay, just before we could enter a recap. What is effective demand? Effective demand denotes money actually spent by the people on products of industry. So there is a demand, okay, and the consumers are spending money to the greatest extent, okay, to get the products from the industry. So who is receiving the money? Entrepreneur is receiving money. When he receives money, he is supposed to pay back the amount for his 4 factors that he has used. So 3 factors he pays back, and the last residue which is left over is supposed to be profit. So this is what we call it as effective demand. Next one is, what are the determinants of consumption function? 2 determinants are there. One is income of the people. Next is marginal propensity to consume. So how much a consumer is willing to consume. Second one is the income of the person. So in today's class we are going to see aggregate demand function. Okay, the aggregate demand function tells you there is an entrepreneur. E is for entrepreneur. He is producing. Okay, he is producing the goods, and he sees that every product is sold, and he sees that the number of laborers that he has employed, according to that he is able to get the returns in the form of money. So when there is aggregate demand, what happens? The businessman or the entrepreneur spends money, and what does he expect? That the last product that he is going to sell should be, the entrepreneur should be able to get profit out of it. And according to that, as the output increases, what an entrepreneur does? He employs more number of laborers over there. So the every income that he is expecting from the sale, okay, it increases the level of the employment. So an entrepreneur's only expectation is what? To sell the product. When he sells the product, what happens? His output keeps on increasing. So what does the businessman do? He keeps on recruiting laborers, and he sees that, that is the entrepreneur sees that he gets income from the sale of the product. So now we'll see the first point. In Keynes' model, output is determined by demand. Okay, if there is lots of demand, what happens? Output increases. So demand depends upon the output. So the aggregate demand is the amount of money which a businessman is expecting by selling the output produced by the number of laborers. Okay, so the entrepreneur, what does he do? He is spending money. He is expecting to sell the products that he is produced. That is, the last product that he has been produced has to be sold in the market by the number of laborers that he is going as employed. Therefore, it is expected revenue from the sale of output at different levels of employment. So what is a businessman is expecting? The revenue, that is the income by selling the output, that is at different levels of employment. So aggregate demand has 4 components. What are the 4 components? Consumption demand, investment demand, government expenditure, net export, that is it includes export minus import. So you have a book bag question. What are the components of aggregate demand? What are the components of aggregate demand? Now you are spending. Businessman is spending the amount that household, firm, government and foreign purchases would like to spend on domestic output. Okay, so what is being planned? Spending is being planned. How much to the household, how much to the firms, how much by the government and how much to foreign purchases, that is to export. Okay, would like to spend on domestic output, that is the products that is produced within the country. So desired demand in the economy is the sum total. Okay, you have to sum up everything. Desired private consumption expenditure, desired investment expenditure, desired government spending and desired next export. So when there is a demand and when we are spending money, we see what and all we see. Private consumption, how much is going to be private consumption expenditure, how much is going to be the investment, how much the government is going to spend, how much is going to be our next net export. All this has put together is aggregate demand. Thus desired spending is called aggregate spending. Desired spending, how much you are willing to spend, that is called as aggregate spending. So it is expressed as, look at the equation, AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So all of us know what is AD? Aggregate demand. What does C represents? Consumption. I stands for investment. G stands for government expenditure. X stands for export. M stands for import. Now looking at the diagram itself, we can explain it with the help of this diagram. Now you can see on the x-axis it is employment. On the y-axis it is aggregate demand. So look at the first part of it. At the first part of this stage, up to this stage you can say it increases. That is, aggregate demand increases at an increasing rate. You can see the slope of the curve going straight. After that you can see a bend over that. That is, there is a slight inclination. So what does the slight inclination tells you? Demand increases but at a decreasing rate. So at the first stage, the demand, aggregate demand is increasing at a increasing rate. That is what is shown here. It is faster. At the next level over here, what is happening? It is increasing, but not as it was at the first level. So that is the main thing which we should know. So what is AX axis represents? AX axis represents employment. What is OY axis represents? Aggregate demand. So what does the diagram explain? The diagram explains about aggregate demand price increases or decreases with the increase or decrease in the volume of employment. As the employment is keeping on increasing, aggregate demand is also increasing. Okay, next one. Aggregate demand increases with an increasing rate in the beginning. So at the beginning, at this particular point, it is increasing. Okay, and increasing rate at the beginning, and then here it is also increasing, but at a decreasing rate. It is increasing at a decreasing rate. Then what is happening? This shows that income increases owing to the increase in employment. Okay, so what does this explanation tells you? Income is increasing. Why? Because employment is keeping on increasing. So what happens? The expenditure is of the economy increases at a decreasing rate, at this rate, at this place. Now you have a worksheet. What is aggregate demand? What are the components of aggregate demand? Equate aggregate demand. Draw and explain aggregate demand function. So those who are watching the channel for the first time, please subscribe. Click on to the bell button for further notification. Thank you.